AFCON Today, live on Joy Prime and on 99.7 Joy FM. My name is Fenjo Tahir Fenjo. This is our AFCON daily show every single day from now till the end of the competition, looking back at the biggest talking points from the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations. The show is proudly sponsored by MTN everywhere you go. From now till 2 p.m., we are talking the complete quarterfinal lineup. Yesterday, we saw the last run of 16 matches, and the AFCON is AFCONing. Drama after drama after drama. Morocco, World Cup semi-finalists, kicked out of the competition by unfancy South Africa. And the saying goes, you can beat Spain, you can beat Portugal at the FIFA World Cup, you can make the FIFA World Cup semi-finals, your squad can cost £360 million, but can you do it against a bunch of PSL players on a humid Tuesday evening in San Pedro? No, you cannot. And that's how Morocco's journey at the Africa Cup of Nations came to an end. The pre-tournament favourites kicked out, and they are trophyless from the Africa Cup of Nations since 1976. And that run is continuing. Also, yesterday, the Battle of the Neighbours, Mali against Burkina Faso. It was tense. It was fantastic. The football was great. But yet again, Lassine Sinayoko, he's having a tournament to remember. He was the man that popped up and delivered the victory for Mali against Burkina Faso. One of the most bizarre own goals I have seen ever in my life. And it's from their top player, Edmond Tapsoba, costing Burkina Faso. I will take you through the full quarterfinal lineup and tell you who is playing who and what potentially that path to the semi-final looks like. That's our show for today. And of course, we cannot begin today's show without talking about the final leg, maybe the final chapter to the apology-thon that's been ongoing involving Black Stars players. Yesterday, the Ghana Football Association, they came up with an apology of their own after some 11 days following their exit from the competition. And of course, the Ghana captain, Andre Ayew, also released an apology of his own. And he did it in video format, and we'll play that video to you. You listen to him, and then you let us know what you make of that. So that's all to come here on the show, proudly sponsored by MTN everywhere we go. We'll take a very, very short breather, and then when we come back, I will introduce my guest, and then we can get the conversation going. Remember, we'll be on the line to South Africa to get a sense of how they celebrated deep into the night after South Africa did the unthinkable by knocking Morocco out. This is AFCON Today, live on 99.7 Joy FM, as well as on Joy Prime. We'll be right back. Today. My name is Fenjo Tahir Fenjo. Later on the show, Karim will join us with some analysis on that big game yesterday between South Africa and Morocco. And we'll talk about the AFCON quarterfinal matchups and review yesterday's game shortly. But it's important for us to talk about something important happening here. And to do that, Victor Achutamaklu is here, my regular guest. Victor, how are you?
Great, yourself?
I'm very well. Nice shoes. And today I've drafted in Samuel Apia as well, Ghana football writer here, sports writer here at the Multimedia Group. Sammy, all good?
Yeah.
I like your T-shirt.
Thanks.
Yes. Anyway, guys, there were two apologies yesterday. The apology-thon is on.
Yeah.
The Ghana Football Association, yesterday, they released a statement after an executive council meeting where they expressed their profound regret about what happened in Abidjan. And they said they were taking massive steps towards reforming football. There was no, and that is excerpts of it. The Ghana Football Association extends our sincerest apologies to the good people of Ghana and all stakeholders for the recent disappointing performance of the senior national team, the Black Stars, at the Africa Cup of Nations in CoteD'Ivoire 2023. Now, it goes on to say, we understand the disappointment and frustration that such results can bring to our passionate football-loving nation. Our team's performance fell short of the high expectations we all share, and we take full responsibility for the disappointment. And it says, following a meeting of the Executive Council of the Association and Chairman of the RFAs on Tuesday, January 30, the GFA wishes to ensure all stakeholders that the requisite steps are being taken to address the issues at hand, and a thorough review of the team's strategies, training, compensation, and overall structure is underway. I don't know what you made of this. Shu, let me begin with you. It did stop short of telling us exactly what those strategies are. The assumption is that they will come up with them. No other FA official took any responsibility whatsoever in terms of actually sticking a neck out and maybe walking away. So let me put it plainly. If you were expecting anybody to resign as a result of what happened, nobody has resigned. Your thoughts on this whole thing? Somebody said we forced them to apologize. It's a whole lot.
Which is true. It came too late. It came at a time when the impression out there is that we have forced this out of the Ghana Football Association. It's a statement written out of compulsion. And the initial inertia that preceded this statement justifies those calls. What for me this tells you is that this is not a properly run association. Really? This is not a properly run national team.
Why do you say that?
I say that because under normal circumstances, you don't at this point come and tell us that you are going to address the issues at hand. People who follow your work judiciously would already see a system in place for running the various units of the Football Association. They would see a system in place for running your national teams, the project, so that when the AFCON, the things that we saw at AFCON take place, they can point to the defect in your system and say, this is where we think the problem is. But everyone is saying our football is dying or our football is dead. The FA's communications is, it exhibits a serious departure from our collective reality. And I find that to be problematic.
How is that? How so?
Because
there's an admission that there's a problem.
There's a problem.
And then they say that
it is not an admission of the problem or the magnitude of the problem.
He says the requisite steps are being taken
to address the issues at hand.
Yes.
The issues as we have...
They haven't been defined.
No. And you see, I don't think per that statement, the FA communicated that the communication reflected a certain admission and an agreement with the current public discourse of the state of our football. This presupposes that in the minds of the people at Rage, it is just the Black Stars that have an issue. More to the point, when they say that they have started taking steps to address the team strategies, and they said the team, which is the Black Stars itself, training, compensation, what are they talking about? Because the only account that you can work with has to be the account of the technical team. So the head coach and his backroom staff. Because they draw the team's plan, the training that the statement refers to.
Are you sure they're not talking about training camp? Because I think there were issues
I'll come to that.
regarding the training camp.
So
I'm just trying to say that
I'll come
training,
to that. I'll come
maybe
to
that's
that.
what they're talking about, camping.
I'll come to that.
Okay.
There was supposed to be a technical report if they had not hastily fired the coach and his backroom staff. What they should have done was have a conversation with them, get the team's post-tournament reports on everything that happened, at least get their view on things. There's going to be a technical component of that. You take that report, try to make sense of it on the advice of other technical consultants that you're going to work with, because you no longer need the input of those people that you have fired. Where you need their input is where you are getting the report. You have that conversation about, and you try to get an explanation of their understanding of why the things that happened.
Does firing them prevent the report from being done?
On what authority are you now going to insist that they write a report for you?
By withholding or by owing them several months of salary and asking that send the report, take your money.
Their job is done. It will be very difficult for the Ghana Football Association to go before any chamber or any committee and try to justify that these people who you have fired should not come and work for you. But for me...
No, not work for you. It was part of your contract. Okay, that
Friends,
after a tournament...
That contract has ended. That contract
but
has ended.
the contract says after a tournament, you're sending a report. The tournament has ended.
We don't know that.
Fired.
Friends,
you have to still submit the report.
We don't know that. We don't know that the contract says even when you're fired, you still have to come and work and submit.
Yeah, but we also don't know that firing them means you can't ask them.
We're speaking to convention. Friends, I don't know anywhere, club or international football, where anybody would agree to a contract that says that even after they have been fired, they will still come and work for their federation. So I'm speaking purely based on the conventions that we have seen across all levels. And I'm saying to you that I don't think whatever it is that they are talking about here is practical. And we can trust it, because what they are essentially saying is that the Executive Council and the Black Stars Management Committee are going to try to make sense of the team's training regimes and see whether or not the principles that they were being trained with, essentially give an opinion on what is
training. You could also be looking at conditions under which they trained, not necessarily the training technical setup or tactical setup.
Now, the issue that I have with whatever it says they are going to do is that a lot of the things there were very avoidable, right? Before the tournament, the Black Stars coach, Chris Hughton, was not talking to the FA president, and in fact, the entire FA machinery. The only person at the FA that he was communicating with was Alex Asante. And you know how...
Who is head of national teams.
Who's head of national teams. And he did say this. Now, that lack of communication manifested itself when Ghana had an invitation to play Algeria in an international friendly. The FA unilaterally said, we don't want this friendly, without running it by the technical team. And they went ahead to reject it. Beyond that, that lack of communication manifested itself and affected the team in the sense that even after we qualified for the tournament in September, 3 clear months before the commencement of AFCON 2023, nobody had a plan as to where this team was going to camp before the tournament. And so we're not talking, we are not going to make it our business to look at where we are going to have our pre-tournament campaign. Instead, we decide, the coach says, I want to go to South Africa, I want to camp in Ghana. The FA says no. They say, we are going to South Africa. And then we have this whole chaos of going to Kumasi, and then we find out that, we actually cannot train at the Bavaria Sports Stadium. Okay, then let's go to the Dr. Kwame Chase Sports Complex. The people don't like it, but they have to work there.
So you're saying that basically everything they say they are going to work on was avoidable in the first place.
In the first
And that's why you don't trust.
That is something they were responsible for, that they have failed.
So that's why you don't trust that.
So when did they get this epiphany that produced...
After the failure.
It's the public backlash. And that's why I'm saying that for me, the bigger problem is that this statement does not suggest they appreciate the precarious nature of our football. Look, the Black Stars has given us an opportunity, just to conclude, for us to rethink and look at ways of restarting everything. We are not trying to exaggerate things by, we know our football is dead. And it is important that the people who manage it exhibit a certain understanding and admission that, yes, this is the extent of the problem.
And the problem is not just about Black Stars, like you rightly pointed out. So you didn't see that.
I don't get that.
Holistic approach to dealing with the problem from the root. And they also mentioned that they wanted to deal with issues with compensation. What do you think they meant by that? Sami, what is your understanding of that? They said they were... Maybe they want to review the bonus structure. I'm not sure.
I mean, if they want to review it, then fair enough. But but I just want to say something from what Amateur was saying. If I'm to go by what I just said, because yesterday we had Odrusafo on Asempa and he spoke extensively on what they're about to do. And he made mention of something that Chris was not in talking terms with Kate. But the man categorical on the show said there was that coordination, that relationship with him.
there was
And
camaraderie.
so if I'm to go by that, then it means the people running the FA are not honest themselves.
Yeah.
And this whole embarrassment comes back to them. And that's why, for me, you don't go to a tournament, embarrass the country, embarrass yourself, and after 11 days, you come back with this apology. But I think with regards to the compensation and all these things, if they are going to sit down, and we all know what Danny Jordan did or told the South African players before they left for Ivory Coast, if they are going to go by that, then fair enough. Go there, win the trophy, you come, we give you any amount. But not when the team has not even kicked the ball. Then you pay a player 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. Then you go there, you embarrass yourself. Already the players have already enriched themselves. And so
the payment you are referring to is the appearance fee, right?
Yeah, but
which was reportedly paid.
Before they
paid again.
Sure. So I'm saying that if these things are
each.
Yeah, $30,000 each. So if these things are going to be reviewed and cut down, and they tell the players that this is the new way that we're going to go. I'm not sure that if these players are patriotic enough, and then the FA make that bold decision and table it in front of these players, I'm not sure they are going to reject that. So if they are going to go by that, fair enough. But I mean, the point that I'm making is that the FA themselves, the guys in there, are not honest themselves, and that's why we find ourselves in this place. And if they are going to really restructure things, you don't spread your teams across the region, pick your team into the various national teams, and then claim that you are doing football. The honesty starts with them. The guys are not sincere, and that's why we find ourselves where we are now.
Maybe that's the strategy they want to review. They want to review the strategy.
Then they should start from that place. It should start from there.
As for staffing junior national teams with players of FA officials, that, you see, the thing is that we need to bring perspective here so that anyone listening doesn't immediately jump into a conclusion that we are throwing wild allegations. This is something that the press have consistently figured out based on the players and the clubs they play for who are in the national teams. So you take under 17, you take under 20. In fact, we just named an under 20 squad to go to camp and prepare for the Africa Games. If you go through the squad, there's more than 11 players who belong or play for clubs that belong to people on the executive council of the Ghana Football Association or close allies of people in the ESCO of the Ghana Football Association. And so it is difficult for people to say, to not see that there is perhaps some level of favoritism or nepotism that is going on at youth levels, especially when it comes to national teams. That is the source of what Sami is saying when he says they shouldn't go about staffing the national teams or the junior national teams with players from their various clubs. It is not just an allegation. It is an issue the press has consistently discussed for the longest time. And that is based on where the players at these national teams usually are picked from, the clubs they play for and the people those clubs belong to. Because it is, once is a coincidence, twice, 3 times.
These days, if you go through the list, you're going to see Benab, you're going to see Golden Kicks, you're going to see Aveno Stars, you're going to see
Still Believe,
you're going to see Vision, you're going to see Dreams FC,
Tamale,
who Benab formed, I think, in 2019.
Yeah.
In the month that the club was formed, they had the players from that club being called up into the national team. By the end of that month, Benab had about 4 players representing in the Black Starlets and then the Black Satellites.
And it would have been fine if they had the 4 most talented youngsters in the country at
See,
the
people
time, right?
complain about these things
that would make
because
sense.
the clubs that often have dominated are youth collapse, and it's the same everywhere. It's not because we are change averse or we just want to see players coming from a few clubs. It is because those clubs have got the industry and streets credibility for producing materials of that age. When I say that, what I mean is that when the top clubs in the world are looking for young talents to buy, to transfer, those are the clubs that they go to in the countries and the question. So for any period that if you go back to between 2008 to 2019, the clubs that transferred the bulk of young players in the Ghana Premier League were Liberty Professionals, were King Faisal. Later on, we had Interallies, and then West Africa Football Academy. If you go into the lower tier competitions, you had Tema Youth and those clubs. Over time, it wasn't just the fact that they were dominating the call-ups, but when the FIFA transfer report came out, you saw the value of those transfers and where these players.
But to be fair, in recent
from.
years, Dreams FC have entered the picture.
They have, but I'm just saying to you that if you look at the other clubs that somehow have dominated the national team collapse, right? And especially the kind of players who get into the national team. So at the end of those collapse, typically what happens is that 3-4 years after those players play for the national team only gives credibility to the progress and the management culture at the clubs that they come from. So 3-4 years after under 20, you begin to see these players in the Black Meteors. You begin to see them in the national team. For those in the Black Stars, for those who don't get Black Stars collapse, you see the career progression, right? That is what gives the credibility to those collapse. I'm saying to you that the Ghanaian journalists are complaining because over time, it is difficult to find that trajectory in
a progressive trajectory for the players that came from all
and
those
all
other
of
clubs
those
were
clubs.
deemed or that are deemed to belong to people at the FA.
Just to
to
conclude this, Vince, the issue of the compensation. The Black Stars is your golden ticket. It's a silver bullet to the problem of funding of Ghana's national teams. I would hope that, having realized that the Black Stars is the only time the finance ministry will dip into the consolidated fund, when there is a chance to talk about compensation, find a way to extend it to the other national teams. The Black Queens are preparing for the African Games. They have qualified for the AFCON for the first time in 5 years. We owe them peanuts, but we can't pay because there is no money. This idea that we
say there is no money.
They say there is.
Thank you.
Because this idea that the FA is happy to always deflect the issue of money to the sports ministry is too cheap. You are the managers of the national teams. You can't just sit back and say, as for us, we're waiting. When they bring the money, we'll manage the teams. But when the glory comes, we'll take the glory. So
You can't have it both ways.
you can't have
Fair
that.
enough. The apologies have been coming in droves. Andre Ayew is the latest one to apologize. I said that they needed to put a deadline on these apologies because, quite frankly, it was becoming very monotonous and very boring. And my deadline was 5 days. So if we're going by that, Andre Ayew's apology and the GFA's apology both came outside of the deadline. Yeah. But, because I'm a very generous person, I have extended the deadline. So small leeway. Late entry for the apology tour. Okay. Let's listen to Andre Ayew, who posted this apology on his Instagram page late last night.
These past days has been very difficult days for every Ghanaian football fan and myself. I would like to apologize for the results in the AFCON that we just exited. We know that we should have done better, that we should have brought better results to the nation. As the captain of the squad, I take full responsibility for what happened on the pitch, for the playing body. We should have done better. We should have made sure that we bring results to our nation. But in football, these are things that happened. These are things that make you stronger. And what doesn't kill you always make you become a stronger person individually and collectively. We are Ghana, and everybody that knows me knows that I'm never going to give up, meaning we are never going to give up. We are going to rise and shine again, and we are going to do this as a family. I'd like to apologize again and show our remorse. We understand the anger, the backlash, everything that came to us. We take it and we'll make sure that we put our flag back where it belongs. Thank you very much.
Andre Dede Ayew. Charlie. Andre Remy Morgan Ayew. Obey to me.
You did it.
No bagawaya. Wa shisha ejuma no. You people who want Andre Ayew to retire, relax. Charlie, wait, play that part for me. You see the cry as he do the thing small, he cry small, he wipe tears small. Charlie, Andre Ayew, Ubenya, he said we will rise again.
Andre gets
But,
it.
you see,
What doesn't kill you?
It makes you stronger.
Yes.
Capito is here.
To stay.
Capito is with us.
I saw some people.
Capito is leading us.
Masa, I saw some
but you
people,
see, on a
they
more-
were commenting, he should retire.
No, but thanks. On a more serious note.
Oh, no, more serious note. Who said I was joking? Let me finish.
sorry about that.
Who said I was joking? Yeah, okay, fine. On a more serious note, that was a joke.
Yeah.
But certainly, if we're being serious, to be honest with you, I thought this was actually quite interesting. The fact that he chose video so he could convey the emotions. And listen, I know that a lot of us are angry, and some of us have all said things out of anger as a result of the team's exit from the competition. In the midst of it, sometimes you actually forget that these people are human. And that they have feelings and have emotions, have family members who listen and all that. The team didn't do well. I think that much was evident. Andre Ayew's own performance wasn't great. I think he would be the first to admit that because he's been in this national team since 2007. He knows what standards he has reached with the national team. So he himself would look at what happened in Abidjan and say, that was not my standard. Because he's seen better days. There's no two ways about that.
Yeah.
And so when I see this video apology and I look at his facial expression and I look at the emotions, you can see the hurt in him. You can see that he is very hurt. And why not? Because he's been captain since 2019. We lambasted the GFA for supervising the worst period in our AFCON history. But coincidentally, during that period, he was also captain. Yeah. So he also feels a certain sense of responsibility. You understand me? Yeah. That he also feels that he is also a big part of what has happened during that period. So I can see the hurt. I can see the genuineness. And listen, we've all been very critical of Andre Dede Ayew. There's no doubt about that. But in it, and this is something that the tendency we have in this country, we did it to Asamoah Gyan. We even did it to Abedi Pele. We did it to, in fact, CK Akono. CK Akono was captain of the Black Stars. When they named the squad for 2002 Africa Cup of Nations, they didn't even tell the captain they were not calling him. You know how CK found out? A reporter called him from the BBC and said, what is your reaction for now that you've not been named in Ghana's AFCON squad? He said, I have not been named. He had no clue. So we do this. We've done this over and over and over again. And we're doing it to Andre Dede Ayew as well. So I can see why he's very hurt. Asamoah Gyan was hurt. Abedi was hurt. CK was hurt. Ayew is hurt. And those emotions are valid. Not angry. Like he said, he understands. He says he understands the emotions, the disappointment. But as for the hurt, I can see it in his eyes. He's very hurt. And we've said all kinds of things. You know. Then there are those who are calling for him to retire. Yesterday I saw the comments under the post on Instagram. It was crazy.
Yeah, but
there were those who were supporting him. Like I saw Sarkodie's comment. I saw lots of other...
Video, yeah.
Thank you. Lots of other big people's comments. Everybody was like, lots of big people supporting him. Be strong, be this, be that. You know. And then there were also the 5 megabyte people, you know.
But friend, that is not fair. Friend, that is not fair. But why are the views of the celebrity?
They are not more valid. I'm not saying they are more valid.
Yeah.
But Sarkodie is not 5 megabytes. He has money.
How do you know?
But
He has money.
I mean,
Sammy, you said you were going to say something.
Yeah. Just two things, honestly.
Okay.
Because in Cameroon, I think after we got knocked out by Comoros, he spoke to the media and he said he's going to bounce back stronger and then lead the team to Ivory Coast. Of course he did. We went there, it didn't go well. Honestly, prior to the tournament, Ayew has not been himself.
In fact, he had only played
just 2 minutes.
Yes.
Honestly. And in such
But he didn't
games,
get a club until like November.
Yeah, when he returned back to France and he joined Le Havre, and in his debut he got the red card and he didn't feature again until he went to the AFCON.
I think he came back and played a few minutes, like 34 minutes, something like that.
Yeah. Before we left for AFCON. Yes. I mean, granted, thanks for the correction, but you look at Andre's output and you look at how he performed. He's not the same player that he was.
Obviously.
In years gone by.
He's
33 now. 34 now. And that's why when he made mention of that in Cameroon, I thought, okay, perhaps he'll be able to come back, bounce back, and then lead the team. And just like what I've said, he did it. But you look at Andre's output on the pitch, and it was just...
Not good enough?
Just not good enough. Not good enough. And that's why I kept on saying this, that, listen, I didn't even want him to be part of the team in the first place because I think that the room that we waste to occupy Andre, let's bring in somebody. Let's the person get, a feel of how the national team is and go to the AFCON, have a feel of how the tournament is. And then we draft that person into the national team properly. But we took him there and what was his output? 0. And now he goes back. The apology, well accepted.
Penalty.
And that is another thing.
You know, you said 0. I said it's not 0. He gave away.
No, but the penalty affected us, and we drew against. Mozambique. Imagine if it was even 2-1. Yeah, it was a negative. It's just as that. You are not helping us, but you came on, and then but what I just want to say is that listen, Andre for me, I think he has gotten to a place where you need to consider himself out.
So you're one of those people that thinks he should.
I'm being honest. It's not like I'm pushing him out, but with his performance with the national team in Cameroon and in Ivory Coast, he's not good enough.
In Cameroon, was he not one of our best players apart from the red card? He scored against Gabon.
But listen, even in that game against Comoros, I hold that narrative that perhaps if he should have stayed on, because against Comoros, we needed a draw to even go through.
Yes.
But
the staying on, it wasn't up to him.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, he got sent off. But I'm saying that if he should have stayed off, I hold the narrative that perhaps we would have even gone through with a draw. But I'm making this argument based on his performance in Ivory Coast because their performance in Ivory Coast was not good enough. And then we are just going to Morocco next year.
How is
I don't think that Andre, a 33-year-old can get any time better.
This is the ultimate question. And that's what probably gives credence to the ones that say, you know what, maybe Andre is not finished yet. Because after what happened in Abidjan, then he goes to France, and he scores a brace, comes on in the 70th minute, and scores 2 goals.
Yeah, but do you think...
And we were the same people who were reporting... Inaki too went... Hold on. Inaki went from the national team, had a really average, if not poor tournament, goes to Athletic Bilbao, he scores, and the argument was, what is it with the Blasters? The Blasters is the problem, they don't pass in the ball. Yeah. But the day 2 comes, he struggles, admittedly, he scores even a brace, more than Inaki did, and the argument is not, the Blasters is not good enough. The argument is no longer they don't pass the day the ball, or they don't cross the day the ball. No. It is, the day is old, he must retire. I need us to be consistent.
Okay,
yeah,
no,
but
we cannot...
Just a very snappy one. Friend, you think where Andre is?
Don't ask me, man.
No. Because you are making a case for him. And I'm just saying that. I'm just asking you this question. We saw how Muntari got away from the national team because he was not getting enough playing time. Perhaps the same as
wasn't happy either.
Yes, the same as Steve Napier's situation. Are you saying that? Looking back and how players exited the national team, we've not gotten to a place where we should be bold to tell Andre that, listen, we need to give other players.
That is the point. And for me, that is one of the things that we haven't handled well when it comes to phasing out our more senior players. We have a very checkered history of how we've done it over the years. And we are there again.
Look,
Actually, you don't have a lot of time. You only have about 90 seconds.
I am sympathetic, and I can understand Andre's disappointment. He's given a lot to this team. The team
definitely has.
Means a lot to him. Even his critics who like to hold up the shenanigans of AFCON 2013 against him cannot deny his immense contribution to the progress of the team.
Especially 2010, 2015,
2017.
2017.
But the reality also is that the allure of Andre is beginning to wane with each disappointing performance.
That's right.
The dissent grows with each bad decision Andre makes on the pitch. Even the mishaps that happen to him, people are no longer able to be sympathetic because they believe he's gone past his sell-by dates. Maybe also, and we are very religious people, so I'm not quick to dismiss those who say there is something to say about the fact that under his captaincy, not much has gone right with the Black Stars. There is the AFCON 2019, there is AFCON 2021, and then there's 23 that has happened.
Even the World Cup.
And the misfortunes that happened to him particularly, the penalty at the World Cup, the Comoros red card, the penalty against Mozambique in a game that we thought we had wrapped up. So think about that. But for me, the central theme is that African players have a misplaced sense of entitlement and have a misunderstanding of what it means to play for the national team, to the extent that because they feel they have been good before, they should leave on their own terms. The most important thing for me is even the fact that they don't know when to walk away. So even when they've gone past their sell-by dates, they still want to play for the team. And that is why when fans get to the saturation point, every good thing Andre has done and every good thing Jan has done no longer matters to them. You become the bête noire of the team, the embodiment of everything they don't want to see.
The other side of the argument at you is that, and you're right when you say they don't know when to walk away. But what about us? Do we know how to move on from them? Because we are the ones, the coaches are the ones who keep calling. Andre doesn't call himself, right?
Friends, we don't know that because these...
No, we know that he doesn't call himself. Yes. That we know. He's not the coach.
What I'm saying to you is that we don't know how to walk away from or end this marriage, move on, because these players become cult figures to the extent that today, it's almost a taboo topic for anyone to say, when is Andre retiring?
No, that's not the question.
No, what about the question? The people who manage
Chris Hughton, right?
Friends,
for me, Chris Hughton. If Chris Hughton names his squad, and there's no Andre Ayew's name, why will not play a game?
No, we will.
So
we will not be fine. Somebody will die.
We'll be okay.
So if you come and add his name, and then you want to blame the boy again for it. It's twofold.
Two things, friends.
Yes.
There is having coaches who are not able to boldly say, this is it. Thank you for your service, but we're done. We need to move on. There is that. Unfortunately, we haven't had coaches. That is what Chris Hughton should have done. He failed. The other thing also is that we have created a culture that makes it very difficult for coaches to... 2010, when Milovan Rajevac said he was not taking Lai Kingston to the World Cup, Kwesi Nyantakyi, the FA president of the Ghana Football Association, had to literally go and beg. So you have the whole...
and he still did it.
He still did. Yeah. But I'm saying...
No, he still didn't take him.
He still didn't take him.
Because he was convinced about the player, isn't it?
I'm saying to you that there is a culture in place that makes it nearly impossible. When you make that decision, you would have the most powerful person in the football space walking up to you and try to convince you.
Do you think that culture is wrong? Do you think that is the case, for example, with someone like Chris Hughton?
No, but I've already said...
Hold on. That Chris Hughton is afraid that if he does not name Andre in his squad, somebody will come and tell him, put Andre's name?
Not necessarily somebody. Andre is a very polarizing figure. Let's not pretend that any coach can say Andre will not play and there will be no consequence. Or
what would be the possible consequences? Like, I'm interested. If a coach doesn't name Andre, what are the possible consequences?
CK Akuno, Milovan Rajevac will be better placed to answer these questions. There are things that I cannot say because I cannot prove them. But I'm saying to you that characters like Andre Ayew are polarizing figures.
To be fair,
they are more powerful than we would like to admit.
But hold on, though. Didn't Kwesi Appiah even leave him? In fact, he called him for AFCON 2013. Andre arrived late. He told him to go back, and he didn't take him to the tournament. But we went all the way to the semi-final.
The same Kwesi Appiah, after we had played Congo without Andre, had one of our finest performances, right? The Ethiopia, the 5-0 game, parties.
Yeah, we scored here.
No.
Yeah.
Congo.
Yes. It was Congo here.
It was a double header. We played 1-1.
And then we went away.
Then he didn't go for the return leg. Said he was injured. Then his brother Jordan to say he was sick. And then they gave him serious fruit juice. And then Kawawa has been...
You probably should ask the same Kwesi Appiah why he somehow decided to call back Andre in the team, even when in private quarters he had told some people that these guys are dumb. So I'm saying that, look, we are part of it, but the greater responsibility lies with the players whose legacies are at stake. Look, Andre Ayew, we thank you for what you have done, but it is time to walk away.
Okay.
Don't wait for your reputation to be soiled before.
So in other words, it's like a guest overstaying their World Cup.
Charlie.
Right? When you visit somebody's home and you finish eating and then they start making comments like, hey, my bro, I have to go and bath. I have to go and bath. And you are still sitting there.
Say, no, you want
my
to
brother,
the desserts.
Take the cue and leave. Hey, the person says, oh, Charlie, it's been a long day, Mom. Oh, this was nice, man. Anyway, hey, Charlie, the whole day, no bath crowd. And you are still sitting there. You don't understand.
Waiting for dessert.
Anyway, let's move the conversation on then. Because yesterday there were 2 games at the Africa Cup of Nations, 2 round of 16 matches. The first one was between Burkina Faso and Mali, and we will talk about that later. But let's talk about this game between South Africa and Morocco. Yesterday, you in particular, actually, you were very cautious, in fact, in tipping Morocco to win. In fact, you did say that you expected, South Africa to win this game, and they did not disappoint. Hugo Broos went in there, set up a team that was compact enough, limited Morocco to very few opportunities, and then when they caught them on the break, they were brilliant. This was a very, very different South African performance. This is not what we typically know them to be like, to play like.
Well, this is typical of South Africa against North African teams. They, as far as I can remember, have not lost a game at the AFCON against North African opponents. They beat Egypt. In fact, in 2019, it was at the Cairo International Stadium when they beat Egypt to qualify to, I think, the semis of that competition. Now, what we're seeing here is the product of a coach who has absolute authority. In stark contrast to the examples that we've given about Milo and Chris Hughton and all of that, before this tournament, Hugo Broos made some bold calls. So I'm sure in the wake of that win, a lot of people would reference the call-ups and how he said that he's his own man and he will choose who he wants to play. Before this tournament, he chose to select players who were not performing. Evidence Bakopa. At the time he was called up and named in the 44-man squad for South Africa, had not scored a single goal. Domestically, he had not scored any goal. But the manager says, these are the guys who get it for me, and I'll play them. To put matters into context, he's the same guy who, in June, before South Africa played the same Morocco, dropped the top scorer, the joint top scorer in the PSL, who had scored 12 goals at the time, Kanyiso. He dropped Kanyiso. He dropped Kuli Muda, who I think played for Galaxies and was, in the eyes of many, the best defender in South Africa. I'm saying this because I want Ghanaians to understand that the decisions coaches make will not always make sense to us.
You know what? Actually, hold your thoughts there. Let's cross over to South Africa and speak to my good friend, Kaliso, who works for Super Sport. And to give us more perspective on this Hugo Broos team and what exactly they have been doing right. Because, you know, I spoke to him before the tournament began, and we spoke about, and he said the expectation of the people, the least expectation for them was for them to get out of the group at least and then see what happens. They've gone one step further and they've done the biggest thing at this tournament so far, which is knocking out World Cup semi-finalists. Is Cluso on the line? Okay, is that Cluso's phone or what's happening? Cluso, are you there?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys
yes, I can hear you, my friend. How are you?
Good. I've been listening to you guys talk. Just have to start by saying I like your shirt.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Listen, let's talk about Bafana, because yesterday they did the unthinkable, knocked out Morocco. I mean, you're a journalist, obviously. Was this something that has come to South Africans as a big surprise, or there was an element in the South African media that this team could actually beat Morocco?
Yes and no. There's an element of choking that we have become accustomed to when it comes to Bafana, and that's why, as I was speaking to you earlier, I did mention the fact that a lot of people say a disconnect between Bafana as the national team and obviously the fans. So if they had to feed off the fans' energy in South Africa, I think it would have been.
I beg your pardon, Cluso. I can hardly hear you now. Yes. I think you went off a little bit there, but yes, you're making a point about South Africans not necessarily believing in this team that much.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of belief in Bafana, and it's not opinions that are necessarily shaped or formed by facts. You know, if we look at the facts about the South African team, that I think since Hugo Bros came through, he's only lost one game. It was an important game, but he's only lost one game. The last time they played against this Morocco team that had just come back from Qatar, from obviously finishing in the top four, making semifinals in Qatar. They played South Africa and they lost by 2 goals to 1. So if we look at the fact of this South African team, it's a team that has done relatively well, but emotions, obviously, with the South African fans, like emotions guide us to not have that much belief in the team, considering how bad we have been before, because of the same national team. But it's a new team now. Hugo Bros has come through. It's the makeup of a team. I think yesterday there were about 8 players from Mamelodi Sundowns that started that game, and we had Mashiko that came on in the second half, who is also a Mamelodi Sundowns team. So you can see what Hugo is trying to do, because I think that might also be the direct result of the relationship that the South African Football Association and the Premier Soccer League have here in South Africa, because just before the tournament started, Hugo Bros had asked the Premier Soccer League to cancel the matches, the last round of matches that was played, and obviously the PSL said no, which meant that he did not have enough time, or so to say, he did not have like the amount of time that he wanted with players in camp. So when they trimmed the squad down, it was always going to have large number of players were always going to start out players. But I think the fact that he was not going to have enough time to put his team together, I think that played a huge role in obviously him trimming the team and having this big contingent of Mamelodi Sundowns players who have incredible experience of playing on this continent, especially against the North Africans. So they are experienced. They know what to do when they play against the North Africans. They did in 2019, as one of our colleagues has already said, against Egypt did it against Morocco.
Okay. And that last point that you made, Cluso, very, very important point. The fact that a lot of the players from that game yesterday in the starting line, I think, 7 of them are Mamelodi Sundowns players who, as you rightly...
8 Mamelodi Sundowns players. Yeah.
8 of them, which, as you pointed out, means that they have a lot of experience playing against North African teams. Even just in the African Football League, for example, they beat Moroccan teams to win the competition. The CAF Champions League trophies they've won in the past, they beat Moroccan teams. So they know exactly the temperament, the mentality that these North Africans come into the competition with. So that is big credit. And then, of course, there's also the aspect of team chemistry, because we've seen teams win competitions in the past by building their teams on the base of certain club football teams, like Spain of 2010, with the foundation of their team being Barcelona players. Maybe Hugo Bruce is doing something special. Last question for you, Cluso. I know I've kept you on the line for way too long. I know you're at the gym trying to work out. Workout is good for some people, not for me. The last question, what is possible for Bafana right now? Because your next game is against Cape Verde on Saturday. Suddenly, South Africa, who came into this competition only expecting to go out and just make it out of the group stages, could be looking at the semi-finals.
There's a saying in South Africa that that is where the danger is. And to be honest with you, when it comes to, and I'm going to say this with the greatest respect to Cape Verde, but when it comes to Minos, so to say, that is where we get risky as South Africans, because we've always felt like when we play against the powerhouses of African football, we've always, tried to hold our own. The last games that we played against Cape Verde, I think it was to qualify for the 2018 FIFA World Cup. We played them in 2017 and they beat us away 2-1. They beat us here in South Africa, Johannesburg 2-1 as well. Because I think there was a level of undermining. And I was actually just talking to a colleague of mine this morning saying, listen, Morocco, the game was done last night. That's good. They've got to move on now and try to focus on that game on Saturday, because look, it's not that the highest ranked team that they're going to play or that.
All right, so Cluso, I'm sorry, we have to go, but what do you think is going to, do you think South Africa, Bafana will beat Cape Verde?
I think they have a chance, but they have to get into the right frame of mind.
Very well. Thank you very much, Cluso. Cluso Nemaramela is a South African journalist working for Super Sport. You're watching AFCON Today. We'll be right back.